Greetings, gamers. This is Rad with Podcast816, and we're here with another podcast. You never know what these things are going to be about. I have no clue what we're going to talk about today. It's a mystery. You're never going to guess what it is. Let me just get this stuff out of the way. Yes, we're going to talk about the mini systems today, the mini consoles that have come out, and I love every single one of them. And we're going to call this one number 3, How to Survive a Pandemic. So that's how I've been surviving pandemics, by playing, pandemics. Is the only one I've ever lived through, but in any case, I've been playing mini systems, and they're a lot of fun. If you can get, some of them are easy to get a hold of. Some of them aren't so much, but that's playing video games is that's how else would I spend a quarantine? I would and there's a lot of different systems that I have, and I can show you a few of them. The first one is the Atari Flashback, which I have right here. So this is. It looks pretty similar to the original Atari 2600, which is here. Now, some of you younger folks might not really, care about this one. This was out late 70s, early 80s. Similar, but not quite perfect. Now, this is the Atari Flashback 9, but the Atari Flashback 10, they made it a lot smaller, and it actually has switches on it, like this one has or had. And these plasticky kind of buttons, I'm not sold on that whole thing, but it does have an SD card slot in the side, so it does let you add more games to it. But the thing comes with I want to say the box, which I haphazardly threw on the floor, 110 games out of the box, which not too shabby. So that's pretty cool. But even though there's that many games, of course, there's a bunch of homebrew games that have come out. The community's made some really cool games. There's a few games on here that, or a few games that I like that aren't on here, I should say. I put the SD card in, and I put a few more that I like on there. So let me get this behemoth out of the way, and I can actually show you how this one works and how it plays. It's actually pretty cool. I've got an HDMI cord right here. And it's one of those upside down ones. Boy, does that it cheeses me off when they make it upside down. Doesn't that bother you? HDMI cables need to plug in right side up. All right, so that's plugged in. Now the controller that it has is, as you can see, very, very similar to the original. In fact, I would call it identical, except it has these extra buttons on here. So what these extra buttons are for, as you can see right here, this is menu. Goes back to the menu, select, start, and rewind. So if you want to be a big fat cheater, you can rewind when you lose, but I don't use that too often. And then back to the menu. So that's kind of neat that they put those extra buttons on there. Unfortunately, the controller cord, like it is on a lot of these minis, is pretty short-ish. I mean, I think they expect you to kind of have the system on the floor, and then you're sitting near it playing it. They don't want you to have it or they don't envision you having it up in an entertainment center close to your TV, and then you sit back on the couch. I'm not 100% on wireless controllers because some of them have a little bit of lag, especially Bluetooth ones. So I do prefer wired controllers, but it is nice to be wireless if you're not playing a game that's real twitchy and needs that exact precision control. You can get away with a wireless controller, especially a Bluetooth one. But this one's wired. So what I did is for some reason, I had this laying around forever. This is a Sega, I don't know if you can see that, it's a Sega branded extension cable. So the Sega Genesis and the Atari 2600 have the same connector. So I'm able to plug it into the Sega cable, and now the cord becomes much, much longer. So that's pretty neat. I don't necessarily need it sitting right here at this table, so I'm going to do away with it for the moment. And then we'll just plug this in. Control ports on the Atari were back here, if you ever had that system, but now they've put them in the front. So we're going to plug them into the front. And again, you usually plug them in this way. They're upside down on this one. And again, that's just one of those sets off my OCD alarm plugging it in upside down. But anyway, let's fire this thing up and see how it looks, how it sounds. Nothing. There it is. You may have just briefly seen the @Games logo there. And there's the music. So yeah, very 8-bit inspired. I kind of like it. It's pretty cool. So the I'll blow this up for you so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. So here's the menu, and it's got quite a few games on here, and we can kind of go through and look at some of them. I wouldn't look at all of them because, oh my God, there's so many. But yeah, the games, I think they play great. So I believe I can hit start. Yep, just from here. So rather than, on the Atari 2600, there was only the one button. So whenever you wanted to start the game, you had to hit reset on the actual system, and it was a big pain in the neck. This one just lets you do it right from the controller. So that is one bonus to having these little, all the buttons on the front of it here. But I'll do a little gameplay demo. Here's barnstorming. Boy, do I stink. It's like I've always said, you're never going to see like expert gameplay on this channel. I do all right. So the idea here in barnstorming is to not hit anything, but yet get under all these barns and get the best time possible. Oh, not good, not good. So yeah, that's it, barnstorming. That's kind of fun. And then again, from the controller, you can just go right to the menu. It's got save slots, so you can, if you got to run out to, go somewhere, you can save your game. But I'm just going to do quit game, and we'll get back to the menu. Okay. So yeah, pretty good. I don't know, if you guys have favorite games on here, but this, as you can see, there's many pages of games on here. So yeah, Atari 2600, it does a pretty good job. @Games, kind of a reputation for not being the best minis that are out there. This isn't, it's not perfect, but the hacking community has made it pretty easy to just load up that SD card with extra games that you want on there. But just dump them on there. So the Atari Age forums is like the best place to go to find like all of the necessary files and updates that you need to get this thing going. I'm not going to get into all that. It's pretty easy stuff. If you know how to use Google, you can get on there and figure out how to mod an Atari Flashback 9. And I believe the Atari Flashback 10 has a mod too, where you can put the extra games on there. But this is the one I have for now. Eventually I'm going to get that 10 because I just like it. It's a little bit smaller and looks kind of more like the system with the switches on it and everything. So eventually I'm going to pick that one up too. But yeah, Atari Flashback, pretty wild. This is probably the oldest one. I think the next one that probably came around was the NES Classic. So we'll get Atari out of the way. And we'll take a look at the NES Classic next. So this one is actually made by Nintendo. It's like the Atari Flashback made by @Games, third party, this is actual real Nintendo hardware, so that's pretty awesome. The controller ports are the Wii from the Wii, and I believe the Wii U use these two for the you could still use the Wii remotes, and they have this exact controller. So the cool thing about the controller, and they did use the original, not the dog bone controller for the NES, but there again. That is, I don't know if you can see that. It's another short cord. So, ideally you're going to have this just sitting on the floor, HDMI cable and power cable going off, toward your TV, and you're not going to be able to set this on your entertainment center. So these snap in, these are the snap in, once they're in there, they're snapped in, you got to push them. So this is the Wii U. So the cool thing about this, I guess, is that you can use it with your Wii and use it for the Virtual Console. You can plug it into the Wii remote and use it to play Virtual Console games. So that's kind of a neat thing, I guess. But Nintendo always got to use something proprietary. It's just their thing. They love to make it difficult. Couldn't just use USB or the old style control. Either or, either go with USB, a standard that everybody uses, or use the old ones. So you could just use your old controllers and everything, because the old controllers have, not huge, but slightly longer cables on the old. This is a dog bone. I think the original NES controller probably had even a longer cable than this, but it's just it's not ideal to have this short little cord. So that's one of the only drag about this thing. Nothing on it is movable. You can't open the this or anything like that. It doesn't have the little bottom plate that you can pop off. Just HDMI and power input there, and then the front's got actually reset button does work, and then the actual power button does work too to actually power it on. So pretty wild. I'm not going to really do a gameplay demo of this one though, because I have the same operating system from this one. The hacking community has made it possible to put the operating system of the NES Classic can exist on the SNES Classic too, so you can play NES and SNES games on the SNES Classic. So we'll do a gameplay demo on the SNES, but I did want to show you, what the system actually looked like, and I happen to have here a sample to show you the difference in size here. Now this is a NES that was donated to us clearly by somebody who died of lung cancer or something, heavy smoker or something like that. I don't know. Little retro bright on that maybe later on to get that looking nice again. But quite a difference in size between these two guys. I mean, he fits like in the little corner of that. He's like like a quarter of the size of the original NES. So it's pretty wild to see this little thing. And I've seen joke pictures of these mini consoles 20 years from now with this yellow on them too. But who knows if that's going to happen or not? We'll see. But I thought that was pretty neat. But I've also got, if you do want to use the original controllers, Hyperkin makes this little guy here. So it's got the adapter that you can plug into here, and then you can use an original NES controller with this style plug on it. So that's pretty wild that you can do that. So it ends up looking like that when you plug the whole thing in. And then you can use your old, your NES 101 Dogbone controller. You can use the NES Advantage, the Max, whatever controllers you had laying around. You could use the old style controllers via this little dongle. So I've got a couple of these laying around, so it's neat to be able to, use those old controllers. Because I'm an old buzzard and I need auto fire, so I like to use the NES Advantage. So I have my my auto fire ready to go. So controller pretty much dead on replica of the original. So I think NES Classic pretty wild. Another way I've been surviving this this quarantine is by playing Atari, NES Classic, and also SNES Classic, which I also have right here. This is the SNES Classic. Same thing as the NES, really not too many moving parts. This doesn't open or anything. It does have the power and reset that actually they do work. Got the power button in the front just like the original. The controllers are interesting because they've got kind of this, this proprietary, again, Nintendo proprietary input. They've made it to where you kind of pull this thing out like this, and then this part just hangs down and got the same type of connector as the NES Classic does. You can in fact easily remove this thing if you just want to have it sitting on your thing like that, so you don't have this hangy thing. That's kind of your own preference how you want to do that. But this is very bendable plastic. You're not going to break it or anything by putting it in there, taking it out too many times. I don't think. I don't do it too often. I just kind of leave it like that. So this one, same thing. The controller is very, very accurate to the original. It looks pretty much just like it. Cords, slightly longer, but still kind of short. But it did. I believe it came with two of them, though. If I'm not mistaken. They show two of them on the box. So yeah, it came with two of them. So the NES Classic was, I believe it was $60. And then when this came out, it was $80, and then for that extra $20, you got that second controller. So I thought that was pretty wild. It's a pretty neat thing. So this one, I'm actually going to plug in, and we'll let you check it out because it's pretty neat what you can do with this thing. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Our beloved hacking community has really done a lot to make this thing even more awesome than it was out of the box. There it is. Okay, so let's fire it up and see what we get. There he is. So there, Super Nintendo Classic. I want to say there's like 20 games on it. Again, I think it said it on the box. I just set it down. Yeah, I think it's about 20 games. Doesn't say a number, but yeah, I think it is. I think the first one was about that too. So yeah, so pretty decent selection out of the box. Pretty much every one of these you look at, it's like, yeah, classic, awesome, oh my god, yeah, really good choices on this particular one. Some of the mini systems have, some of the games are just like, huh, why is that on there, But this one in particular is got some pretty darn good choices on it, so I like it a lot. And the games play pretty much perfect on it. I mean, we can fire one up and let you guys see that. So, heck, man, I think it looks great. It looks good, sounds good. I think these all play really well, these minis. I mean, I know it's not the original hardware. I know it's emulation, but it's not bad, dude. So I don't mind it one bit. So we can hit reset on here, and it'll take us back to the main menu, and we can look through and see what other interesting things this can do. Now, the hacking community. Basically, there's a hack for this thing called Hackchi, Hakchi, and if you know how to use Google, you can track this thing down. It's real easy to find, and basically you can load up a little USB stick and one of these things, an on-the-go adapter, OTG adapter, whatever you want to call it. But basically, this is a pass-through to the power supply, and then you plug the power supply in here instead of into the system. It just passes it through, and that power adapter on the back is also a micro USB that will send data into the system. So they've made use of that. So I'm going to unplug this. This is the power, and I'm going to plug it instead into the OTG adapter, and then I'm going to plug the OTG adapter back into the SNES, and I can never get it right. I always get it upside down the first try. Now let's power it back on and see if there's any difference in what we can do with this thing now. Okay, now we've got some choices here. We can switch to the NES, we can switch to the Famicom, switch to the Super Famicom, or switch to the Super Game Boy. So that gives us all of these systems we can play on here now. In addition, of course, I've added a bunch of games, ActRaiser, Arrow, Batman. None of these games were on here before. Aladdin, Axlay. These are all new. So you can see there's quite a few games down there at the bottom. There's that little, thing down there. And there's so many games that don't even fit on the screen. So they've let you put them in folders. And so you can kind of go to the next folder and so on and so on. And see what other games you've got in there. So there's probably just about 100 games on here. I know some people like to do full ROM sets and all that, and scroll endlessly. And I just like to put the games on here that either I really like or I'd like to try, and I just never got around to it. But the really neat thing is the ability to click into this, and then we'll give it a second to kind of do its thing and think and HDMI handshake and do all those things it needs to do. And then once it comes back, we should hopefully have the NES Classic. Yeah, so this is the exact operating system that's in the NES Classic, so you can actually see that, see what that looks like. If you go into any of the games, and again, just like the SNES, they play perfectly. So this is kind of why I skipped over the gameplay video of the NES Classic, because it's the same thing on the SNES Classic. So I've got NES, Game Boy, Famicom, Super Famicom. You can have all these choices in what you can do. But the neat thing is you can save your data. So if I had actually progressed anywhere on this game and done well, I could hit A, and then you can resume it right from in this case where I died. But yeah, just jump right back into the game. So that's a cool thing about the NES and SNES Classic, that you can jump back in right where you left off. If you've got to run off and do whatever you got to do, you can certainly do that. And again, I've got these pipes here that I've got other games, more than fit on the screen. So you just go into here, and then it's a whole new set of games. So you can kind of go back and forth that way. And then when you're ready, return to the Super NES Classic. And there you go. So we've got, kind of a lot more options here now. So I think that's pretty wild. So unfortunately, to get NES Classic or SNES Classic, you can have this setup that I've got on the SNES Classic on either or. I've got my NES Classic and SNES Classic both with the exact same content on them. So no matter which one I hook up, I can choose from all these systems that I have here. So that's kind of neat. And the other thing is that what I was about to say is that it's kind of hard to find these now. Unfortunately, Nintendo stopped producing them, so now it's you got to go on eBay. A NES Classic's going to be like $125. A SNES Classic's going to be about $200 to track one down. They're getting pretty expensive. So if you could find one, cool. They're really obviously very very hackable, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with them. And heck, even out of the box, they're pretty good. So yeah, if you get an opportunity, try and check it out. It's pretty cool. So what else do we have? Yes, PlayStation Classic. So let's get the SNES Classic back in the box, and I'll show you the PlayStation Classic. Oh yeah, I suppose I should do a size comparison before we jump into that. This is the size difference again, about the same as the NES Classic. It's about a quarter scale to the original SNES, but dang if it doesn't look exactly like it. They did a heck of a job making those look so identical. It's pretty impressive. What a great job they did on these things. So PlayStation, there it is. Doesn't open. You can press open. Top doesn't pop open or anything like that. But it does look pretty identical, and I won't forget this time. I'll actually show you the difference between the two. Again, about quarter the size of the original. You can see there. Out of all of them, I would say that the PlayStation is the one I was least impressed with, unfortunately. Out of the box, its game selection is a little head scratchy. Like, huh? What? Why? What? So it was just kind of a letdown. And some of the games on there are the European versions, so they run at the wrong frame rate. They kind of lag a little bit. There's just a bunch of problems. Just like when it came out, it just kind of seemed like a like a bandwagon jump. Like, everybody else is doing this. Throw something together, to compete, and it was a shame. I'll kind of show you what I mean. I'll get this one hooked up. And I just wasn't super impressed. I mean, it's neat to play PlayStation. The system looks exactly like the original. And it does have that cool startup sound, which, I love that. Controller looks exactly the same. And it's actually sort of a long-ish cable, so I was sort of happy about that. It's screaming at me because I haven't plugged in the controller yet. There we go. Okay. Okay, so Toshinden, cool borders. I don't know, when I think of PlayStation, like, I don't think about, like, cool borders. Like, Destruction Derby, I played that. I remembered it. Okay, Final Fantasy VII, good choice. Grand Theft Auto, yes. Intelligent Cube, maybe, I don't know. Jumping Flash is fun. Metal Gear, of course, got to have that. Mr. Driller, I thought was a strange choice, but it's a pretty cool game, so it didn't bother me too much. Oddworld's a good one. Rayman, Resident Evil, Persona, Ridge Racer 4, but not the like. I felt like the original should have been on there, and Ridge Racer 3, but no, just 4 is strange, dude. I love Puzzle Fighter, but I don't know. Is that like one of the PlayStation classics? Siphon Filter was a classic. Tekken 3 was a classic. So some games are great. Some are like, it's kind of weird, and there's not that many on there. And some of them are the wrong region. So I was kind of like, it's okay. Now the menu looks just like the original PlayStation menu, but no background music. Just kind of like, why did they? I don't know. Whenever I mod these things, whenever I find out about a mod, the first thing I want to know is, does it keep it looking stock? Will it, I don't want them to be all like, I like the out of the box experience. Even though I'm modding and putting more games on it, I just like that out-of-box experience where it looks like it did when you took it out of the box. Just it has more games on it. That's it. I just like it to be as close to the original as possible. This is the only one where I kind of took some liberties on. And I'll show you what I mean. And again, you can use one of these on-the-go adapters. They all have these. Here, I'll give you a kind of so you can see this a little better. One of these on-the-go adapters with the with a USB stick attached. I use 64 gig. That's plenty of space for, I don't want to put a ton of games on there and stuff, but I'm going to shut this down. And then once it's shut down, I'm going to, again, pass through this on-the-go adapter. And then I did it wrong again. I always get it wrong. Put it upside down. All right, now let's fire this guy back up, and I'll let you see that window a little bit bigger there. And we'll see how it's changed. Okay, now we've got the screen Project Eris. Project Eris is the name of the hack that they made for this thing. And as you'll see, quite a few more games. And this is, like I said, one of the ones I took a little liberty on. I gave it a different themed background. I just think this one looks prettier. I like the look of this one a lot better. But now, Dracula X? What are you guys not putting Castlevania on the PlayStation Classic? I mean, that's just, why would they not, And I of course got the Japanese version because the voice acting in the U.S. version. What is a man? A miserable pile of secrets. It was so bad, dude. It's like it's in the top 5 of all time. I think it's in my personal top 5 Castlevania. But that voice acting is just terrible. I played the Japanese version before I played the U.S. version, so in my mind the Japanese voices were fine. I got used to them, and when I played the American, I was like, oh man, it's just not, So I have the Japanese version on my PlayStation Classic because it's my personal preference. And then I've added, some Capcom fighters. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, as most people know, so I put all the Dragon Ball games on there. Einhander. Why was Einhander not on there? Why was Final Fantasy Tactics not on there? I mean, come on, guys. Of course, I got to have my shooters. We love shooting games. So I've got my Paradius Deluxe Pack, Gradius Deluxe Pack, Gradius Gaiden. Gotta have those, man. It's just, you gotta, they've got to be on there. Shabari Paradius? Soul Reaver? I mean, come on, you got to have some of these games. And then I put VR missions on there. There's a million things on there that weren't on there before. There's just some great stuff. But one of the most interesting things that's on there is this. When you can actually install and run Windows 3.1 on there, which is it's extraordinary that just seeing this old operating system was like, holy cow, man. Now, why would you run this on a PlayStation Classic? Well, because you can, for one, but also just because there was a ton of games that came out in the 90s that were just like amazing games for the PC. I mean, Out of This World was on PC, Flashback, Rebel Assault, Lemmings and Lemmings 2. Like, oh god, there were so many good 90s PC games that they were so good. And in fact, I'll actually show you something very interesting here. Again, I mentioned Castlevania was in my top 5, and let's see here. Let's see if we can get this to work. Probably won't because I plugged it in after the fact. So let's get out of this, and I'll show you. That won't let me get out of it. All right, let's depower, and we'll try it again. Because there is something really neat in here that I think you ought to see. There we go. Love that startup sound. That's so great. Project Eris. And again, if you can use Google, you'll be able to find Project Eris and get this installed in your PlayStation Classic. It's pretty easy to find still, the PlayStation Classic, and it's come way down in price since it first came out. I want to say it was $100 when it first came out. I've seen it as low as 30 now, so you can track this thing down pretty easily. Okay, so just seeing that Windows 3.1 title screen is so extraordinary, and like you're sitting here playing a PlayStation. Okay, now the mouse works. Fantastic. Okay, so let's go over to it's working, but it's there we go. File. Let's exit Windows. Okay, now we're back to DOS, and since I'm an old buzzard, I still know all my old DOS commands. There we go. So as you can see, we've got a fully working version of Star Control 2 on this thing. And Star Control 2, like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, one of my top 5 games of all time. If you've never played Star Control 2, oh man, come on, you've got to try this game sometime. Not only is it have an excellent one-on-one battle mode with all these different spaceships, but it's got like this full-blown sci-fi story. I'll press enter. So I'm going to start a new game. And the sound is there. The thing that I love the most is that the controller actually works too. It's mapped to the PlayStation controller. Let me type my name in there. Okay. And then exit menu, and let's navigate. So this is how you start. You're in Earth's solar system. You've been away for a while. And you come to find out that the Earth is surrounded by a slave shield. No one can get in or out of the planet. And the first thing you encounter when you get to Earth is this probe. So clearly these dudes, the Urquan, have taken over everything while you've been away. And you may not be aware, but for a 90s PC game, most 90s PC games were using MIDI for their background music. This game uses a format called mod, which enabled like much better sound samples than you typically had in PC games back then. So the music in this game is far and above anything that came out at that time. It's extraordinary just how good this game is for its time. And it took up 4 floppy disks. It wasn't that huge. So then you talk to this fella, and he kind of explains to you what's going on, and it's just an extraordinary game. So I'm gonna actually get out of this. If there's an easy way to do that, probably not. So we do the old unplug, which is fine. So yeah, PlayStation Classic, out of the box, not so hot. Once you get the mod in there and you get some of the games you like in there and change the background some better, it actually becomes something pretty awesome. And you can run Windows 3.1 on it. I've got Star Control 2, one of my favorite games of all time. I've really had no way to play that up to now. I know you can go on and put on DOS-Box on a PC or on a whatever, but to just play it on an actual console and just have it pre-mapped to my controller and play, oh my gosh, Star Control 2. You can get a copy of it on Windows. They have since ported it as an HD remake and everything. It's called the Urquan Masters HD. You can Google that and find Star Control 2. But man, by all means, play Star Control 2. Look, I still have my old box from the PC version, and I sent away in the mail for the strategy guide. This is the ultra rare strategy guide. Excellent. I've kept it in excellent condition. It tells you a lot of the secrets and where to find a lot of the hidden items and things that you need to get through the game. And you got not only this the strategy guide, but you got this map that shows it's a map of the entire game. And clearly, I really like this game because I even got this giant map, and that's shows you the whole game, tells you where every constellation is and how to find stuff. And oh my God, just so amazing. Have I gotten the point across that I really like this game? Still got the original map that came with the game, which isn't as detailed, but it is in color. And then the original floppy disks. They don't work anymore. I've tested them. Some of them are corrupt. So whenever I want to play this game, I have to find it from an online source or whatever. But I paid cash money for it, so I feel like I'm sort of justified in doing that. This is the original receipt from Babbage's, still inside the manual. $48.48 was the cost back then. So yeah, which was Louis Joliet Mall, Babbage's, which is not too far from where I live, Joliet, Illinois. I'm not seeing a date though. Oh, here it is. 1/28/1993 is when I purchased this whole thing, and then inside of here is the the form to send away for your for this map and the strategy guide, and of course I did that because I love the game so much. Here is a disc exchange offer. If you had an old 5 1/4 drive and you needed 5 1/4 drives instead of the 3.5 discs they provided, you could send away and they'd swap them out for you. So yeah, what does that have to do with mini consoles? Nothing. It's just something that's cool. So if you want to be cool, that's how you do it. So let's move on from PlayStation. I dig it. That's my review is I dig it as long as it's modded out of the box. It's kind of sort of lackluster, but I do like the system and the controller because they're dead ringers for the originals. So heck, you can probably get it for pretty cheap. It's a lot easier to find than NES or SNES Classic, that's for sure. So yeah, let's see what else we've got. Oh, Sega Genesis. Sure. All right, well, let's take a look at that. Probably have one of those around here. Yeah, here we go. Sega Genesis. Probably of all of them, my favorite. This one, whoever put it together, I think it was the M2 company put it together. At Games, who made the Atari Flashback, had a Genesis Flashback that they came out with, and this is just miles and miles above that one. It's unbelievable what a great job they did on the Genesis Mini. Unfortunately, my regular size Genesis is out on active duty for Arcade816. It's in our Genesis cabinet, actually playing, and then I have my other Model 1 Genesis down at the bottom of the cabinet in the little swag area down there. So both of my Model 1 Genesis are out in the world on active duty, so I can't do a size comparison because I only have a Model 2 here, and it's just not the same. But you can sort of see it's tiny like the others, So let me get this out of the way, and the controller, dead ringer for the original 3-button controller that came with this Model 1 back in the day. I'm of the understanding that the Japanese console had a 6-button controller, so I'm a little jealous of that. I kind of wish I had been given one 3-button and one 6-button, because it did come with 2, so that is kind of cool. But no such luck. This one, I think this one was $80 when I got it too. So right around the same price as the others, not too different. But I can plug this one in too, and kind of show you. Again, upside down every time. Like every mini system has it like one way or the other. So when I think I have it right, the next one I bust out does it differently. Okay, so even the USB cord is Sega branded. That's kind of there you go. Yeah, you can kind of see that. So that's kind of neat. And another interesting thing about this is that the cartridge slot actually has working. It's a working cartridge slot. None of the other consoles really bothered to do that. And on the bottom, it's got the little snap out for the Sega CD. It actually pops off for no reason, but it does pop off of there. So that's pretty wild. Okay, so let's plug this in and give this one a whirl. Project Lunar. So Project Lunar, by the same team that did the Project Eris mod for the PlayStation Classic, has Project Lunar for the Genesis Classic. So Genesis Classic, pretty good game selection. I absolutely love the background music for this thing. It's done by Yuzo Koshiro, very famous, one of the most famous console game composers out there. So they tapped him, and if you listen to it, it's music from a number of Genesis games, just kind of remastered and redone and played out as kind of a medley playlist sort of thing. But yeah, pretty good selection of games on here, all Genesis games. Sonic 2, kind of wish there was Sonic 3 on here. Kind of wish it had Phantasy Star 2. That's kind of the very first RPG I ever really gave a proper go and played through. Phantasy Star 4 was good too, but yeah, I just missed Phantasy Star 2. It's got Street Fighter 2, but again, it came with only a 3-button controller, so that's kind of like where's the 6-button controller that Japan got. Thunder Force 3, but not 2. I kind of missed Thunder Force 2. And that's it. So not too bad, but kind of wish some other stuff was on here. But still pretty wild. One of the neat things this thing can do is that you can go to languages, switch it to Japanese, and then it changes to Mega Drive. And likewise, all the covers change to Mega Drive. So it's all the original covers, and I absolutely love the cover art for Sonic the Hedgehog. It's so much better than the US cover art. But that's that 90s American marketing at work. They're like, oh, none of these covers appeal to American public. We need to change it. Look at that artwork for Castlevania, so much better. Bare Knuckle 2's artwork, so much better than, oh man, it's such great artwork on here. And they changed a lot of these for the US market, which is just, they're just, let's see if I know Japanese. Ah, good, okay. and then back to Genesis. So pretty wild. I dig it. But again, like I mentioned, there's the Project Lunar mod. So you can again use another OTG adapter. So I'm going to unplug this. I'm going to plug in the OTG adapter. And I know it's very exciting to sit here and watch me swap cables to show you this stuff, but we'll give this a go and see what you think of it. Okay, so as you can see, my favorite game, one of my favorite games, Herzog Zwei is finally on there. I've got Sega CD games on there. You can play Earthworm Jim. You can play Final Fight CD, Eternal Champion CD. Got Fix-It Felix. Gotta have Fix-It Felix on there. Out of This World 2. The only console that Out of This World 2 ever appeared on is on Sega CD. 32X games. Knuckles Chaotix is on there now. Lords of Thunder for Sega CD. 32X games, even Master System. You can play Master System games on here, and they all support the FM chip, so you can play them, with their full FM audio for the Master System games. So now we've got Star Control 2. Star Control 2. Still got it in my head. Phantasy Star 2. Sorry, Phantasy Star 2 is on there. Star Control 1 is on there though. There it is. Star Control 1. Space Harrier, great arcade port of Space Harrier, 32X. Sonic for Master System, that's fantastic. Sonic 3, now this is Sonic 3 complete. It's got Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. You can play them all as one long game. I think that was kind of the original intention of Sonic 3. So, yeah, a lot of fantastic stuff on here now. I've put Thunder Force 2 on there. A weird Genesis port of Super Mario Brothers. That's a thing that you can check out. Also Thunder Force 4, great, fantastic shmup. Virtual Racing, Virtual Fighter for 32X, excellent, excellent. So I'll give a little run of Sonic CD here. And of course, I'm using the Sega CD BIOS from Japan because it's far superior to the US version. I can watch that Mega CD logo bounce around all day and listen to this music. It's so, so great. And I just remember being so disappointed. The first person I knew that had the American Sega CD was my buddy Olaf. And we went out and he bought it. We brought it back to his house. We fired it up. Well, first it didn't work. We had to take it apart and reconnect the ribbon cable that had come loose during shipping. But once we reconnected the ribbon cable, it worked. And instead of seeing this, we saw, the Sega CD BIOS, and we were just so disappointed that we didn't have our cloudy background with our uplifting music and our bouncing Mega CD logo. That we used to actually use our mouse pads when we were at EGM, and we would use our mouse pads and spin them around the Mega CD logo. We were 18. All right. So anyway, let's hit start. So Sonic CD plays perfectly on Genesis Mini. Oh, believe that? Do a little time travel. So anyway, Sonic CD plays great. You know, a lot of the Sega CDs games play great. 32X games, Master System games. You can play them all now. So it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna hit get out of that. We're back to the menu. So Genesis Mini, I think it's my favorite. I really dig this particular one. I love the menu. I love the menu music. I love the game selection, even out of the box. With the mod, it's even better. And I think they took the most care on the system itself, and making it really cool and functional and everything. So let me turn that off and show you one more really cool thing that the Genesis Mini has, which you got to see briefly in our previous podcast that we did. But I'll show you again anyway, because it's really cool. So, like I mentioned, this little thing pops off, just like you did on the real Genesis. You would pop this off, and then that's where you plugged in the Sega CD. And that's still a reality, because there is a little plastic Sega CD that you can get for it. And I can put that there, and then I can pop that on there and plug it in exactly like you did the original. So now you've got Genesis Mini with Sega CD add-on. Now it's not Sega CD, it's Mega CD. It's the Japanese version. This little particular add-on thing didn't ever come out in the US, unfortunately, so it's a shame. So I'm like, it didn't come out in the US. I don't see it coming out in the US because I know Sega, and I've known Sega for years, and that's kind of why they went away, because they wouldn't they were afraid to bring over some of their cooler stuff that they came out with in Japan. So I didn't see anything changing when it came to this thing coming out, so I got it. And I'm glad I did, because it's to this day it's never come out here. It also comes with a little mini 32X, and again, these aren't functional in any way. They're just plastic little add-ons, and this one too has the working cartridge slot, so you can slot that into this cartridge slot, and now you've got Genesis Sega CD and 32X. Well, it's the Super 32X, the Japanese version, but again, from afar, you can't really tell that much, and there are some design elements I prefer on them anyway, so it's not that big a deal. It also comes with a Japanese version of Sonic and Knuckles with the little flip top, so you can put Sonic and Knuckles in there like that, flip the top up, and then it comes with a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog, little mini tiny cute little cartridge that you can plug into the top of Sonic and Knuckles, and now you've got a bona fide tower of power for your Genesis Mini. So it's pretty wild. I think I want to say I brought here's the box that it comes in. So this is kind of what it looks like when you purchase it. You've got the Sega CD there, and then the 32X and the two extra cartridges. So just a little kind of package deal that you get. But what else comes inside of it is this envelope, and inside of this envelope is a booklet, and inside of this booklet is all the original drafting documents for all of the electronics, and intentionally yellowed paper. It's kind of old yellow looking, so they actually look as old as they really are, but it's just extraordinary. I mean, this is almost worth the price of admission. You can get this thing on Amazon.jp for, I want to say, like $40 or something, and just this little booklet is fantastic. The little add-ons are fantastic. They look gorgeous, and you should, if you're thinking of getting the Genesis Mini, you should pick that thing up, because I'm running out of space to put things now. There we go. So yeah, Genesis Mini, I dig it. It's pretty wild. So what else do we have to show you today? How else are we getting through this this quarantine here? C64, Commodore 64. Probably, again, only old buzzards like me are going to know what this thing was. Now, I never actually owned this thing. My buddy Olaf owned it when I first met him, which would have been like 1988 probably. And then I started playing Commodore 64 games with him at his house. So it's one of those things that I don't have a particular attachment to, except when I played it at Olaf's house, I really dug like a lot of the games that were on it. So when I saw it out in the store, I was like, well, heck, I ought to pick that thing up just, to add it to my sort of mini collection. I don't collect a lot of things anymore these days, but it's just one of those things. I already had a few of them, so upside down again. Or was it? No, it was upside down. Okay. Let's see if I can get get a 50-50 chance here. No, I failed. Upside down. There we go. Okay. So let's power this one on and see what this one looks like. Now, if you've ever played Commodore 64, you will immediately know the sound of the SID chip, which is the chip that generated a lot of the audio for the Commodore 64, and the developers really knew how to make use of that thing. This is the controller. It looks somewhat similar to the I think it was the Epix joystick. It was a very clicky joystick, very micro switchy joystick that was out back in the day. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't do a proper review of this thing or really play any of the games on it because, quite honestly, I don't really know any of them. I didn't know the system the way Olaf did. So it's just kind of me showing you, what the menu and stuff looks like. But the one thing that I do think is cool is that it includes the C64's basic, so you can actually go into the actual menu of the system and type in programs. There used to be magazines you would get, and they would have like these long programs, and you would type them all out, and then when you got done typing it all out, it would do like a cool thing at the end. But 9 times out of 10, you would type the whole thing out, and then it would error out because you made one tiny typo in the 20 minutes it took you to type it, and then you would just throw the thing and storm off, and it was just pointless. But basically, this is when you first turned on the system, you would see this screen. It would say ready, and then you would use the keyboard to type, run asterisk, comma 8, comma 1, series of commands that launched most of the games that were on the system. So it is neat that it has that in there, though. But again, I couldn't really I know we played California games a little bit. When Olaf went through this thing, he knew a lot more of these games than I did. It's just kind of me, again, showing you, here's some of the games that are on here. Farming Simulator is a game you can still get now. It's extraordinary that's on there, and then that's still around. Kind of a Galaga ripoff, I guess. Yeah, there's some neat stuff on here, and this one's very easy to add stuff to. You just basically put a USB stick in there, and it'll load those games for you. There's nothing to it. It's kind of got that functionality right out of the box. You don't have to do any special mods or anything like that. So, yeah, C64. I think it's neat. I played a couple games. I was a big fan of the Transformers in the 80s. So there was 2 different Transformers games that were out for the Commodore 64. So they weren't that great, but I did play them a lot. So I put those Transformers games on here and was trying to play them a little bit. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's it. Commodore 64, not going to dwell on it too much because quite frankly, I don't know enough about it to give you like a proper oh yeah, this is, it's just one of those things that's neat to have around, and eventually I'll get the time to mess around with it properly, and maybe I can give you kind of a better review at that point. So let's move on down the line and see. Well, now we already talked about this one before. Let's see, we've got somewhere, here it is. Okay, TurboGrafx. We already talked about this one in one of our last, I think it was our very last podcast that we had. We did the unboxing of the TurboGrafx, so you kind of already saw it. You kind of already know what this does. We kind of already did the size comparison with the original one. Not too much more to dwell into. I did find some more interesting stuff about this one. I will tell you that this one in particular, almost as good as Sega Genesis as far as its its outer. It doesn't have like a proper slot in here. Like you could put like a little tiny fake Hue card in here maybe, but they didn't put a slot in there or anything like that. I kind of wish maybe they would have done that. It does have 2 controller ports, so that's neat. Even without a turbo tap, you could do at least 2 players on some of the games that allow for that. But I will tell you one thing I don't like about it that I've discovered. I do not like the fact that you have to take this dust cover off to plug it in and unplug it. Now, for authenticity, I completely understand why they did this the way they did it, to make it look as authentic as possible, but it's just one of those things that in practicality it doesn't quite work out so well. So the idea of it is you have to pass the HDMI through here, and then you plug that into the system, and then the power cord plugs in under here, under this little lip, and it might be hard to see that there, but there's the power cord under this lip, so you have to kind of fish the power cord in and down and really kind of mash it in there, and it's just it's kind of a pain in the neck. And this particular cable that I'm using, this micro USB cable, is not the cable that came with the system. So there's these little nubs here. The idea is you feed the cable through and stuff it under that little nub. Well, when you have kind of this is a little bit thicker cable than the one that came with the TurboGrafx that I'm just using to kind of plug everything in and test it out here. So this particular one, it has a really hard time fitting in there and getting underneath and getting it, to where you can actually plug the thing in. It's just not super practical. So as far as the design of the thing, it's got a beautiful outer design, but you can see I've finally got it plugged in, and now I can't push that down flat and get it under that nub that it needs to get under there to feed it outside of the system. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer that that's if you use their included cable, even that one has a hard time fitting in there. And actually, I have one cable that I had to pitch because when I shoved it in there, it like ripped off some of the the black outer casing of it, and I don't want a frayed cable plugging into my mini system. So I threw that cable out, Konami. So that's a little bit of a bummer that that you can't really there could have maybe been a better way that they could have put that little bit of it together. So I'm just going to leave the back dust cover off because it's a pain in the neck, and I'm just going to plug it in as is. Leave the dust cover off to the side here, and let's fire this guy up and see what new and interesting things we can discover. I will say one thing about the TurboGrafx Mini. They gave their controller the longest cord you could ever hope for, so I do appreciate that over the other minis. This thing is, I want to say it's over 6 feet long, so that's pretty awesome. Thanks for that. I appreciated that a lot. And I really love the menu music. It has a really good selection of games on here. Not too many, but what I didn't show in the last video is that there's a whole other section of games beyond the American games that we kind of went through, me and Ez went through in our last episode. So, we kind of already explored this, but you can go down here to, at the bottom, there's this icon for PC Engine. So that'll switch the entire operating system over to the Japanese PC Engine with this fantastic little transition graphic. So now we're in PC Engine mode, completely different set of games that are on here. Not completely different, some of them overlap, some of them are on both sides, but there's there's different, a lot of the games are different. We have Bomberman 93 over on the American side. On the Japanese side here with PC Engine, we got Bomberman 94. Now, it's important to bear in mind that none of these games are translated or anything. They're the straight Japanese games, but figure if you've got like 25 games here, you've got 25 on the American side. It's 50 games. Not all the Japanese ones are going to be playable, but still, it's a pretty high number of games, compared to most of the mini systems here. Now, on PlayStation Classic, there was Project Eris was the mod. On Genesis Classic, it was Project Lunar, and for TurboGrafx 16, the same team has one that's up and coming called Project Phobos, which is going to be the mod with the OTG adapter, and you'll be able to put all your own games on here and do everything you can do with the other classic mini systems too. So that's coming soon. So if you're thinking about getting the TurboGrafx 16, know that you'll be able to do the same thing and be able to put any games on there you want. But I am very, very impressed with the overall design of this thing because whoever put together really, really knew the TurboGrafx and the PC Engine, the box design, the system design. I mean, if you look down there on Bomberman Panic Bomber, it's got that Super CD-ROM, that purple Super CD-ROM logo. That was on the spine of the game, and all of the games have their spine exactly as they were on the game itself. There's even a Super Graphics game on the PC Engine side, Ghouls and Ghosts, so that's pretty awesome. Played through and finished that. Thank goodness for save states, because man, that's a tough game to get through. Much harder than the Genesis version. The first playthrough on the Super Graphics Ghouls and Ghosts is just as difficult as the second playthrough on the Genesis one. So getting through the second playthrough, because you have to play through the game twice to finish it, and getting through that second playthrough was pretty tough on the PC Engine, or Super Graphics, I should say. But thanks to save states and stuff, I was able to get through it. I'm not that good. But again, the little HuCard logo there, it's just showing you exactly what was on the spine of the case that the game came in. Ginga Fuki Densetsu Sapphire is one that we ran at Pixel Blast in our TurboGrafx cabinet. So that was the arcade CD-ROM. It's a fantastic game. Already played through Gradius and Gradius 2. They're both fantastic ports of those two games. Only came out in Japan for some reason. That's American TurboGrafx is kind of the same as a lot of Sega's later stuff, where they were just afraid to come out with a lot of this stuff in the US, and unfortunately they went away because of that, and it's a shame, because there's some really great games on here. The other thing that we discovered as and I were messing around with this thing is that there are hidden games on here. A couple hidden games. Salamander, if you hit select a couple times, and it makes that double noise, and then you launch it. And I love this little animation of the card plugging into the system. That's just fantastic. So you get Salamander, and then if you let's start and run, go to the menu. Now it's Twin Bee. So, hidden games on there. That's kind of cool. Because Konami designed the thing, I think they were able to take a few liberties on, what they wanted to put on there. So they snuck a copy of Twin Bee on there. They also snuck a copy of the arcade version of Gradius. So if you hold down, select. So I'm holding select while I'm loading this. Yeah, so this is the arcade version, and you'll notice the music's slightly different. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the menu, and then I'm going to launch it without pressing select. Now this is the PC Engine version of Gradius. Some music's a little different, graphics are a little bit different, but it's cool that they kind of gave you the option to play these different versions of Gradius on there. I believe it's the same for Gradius 2. I think it's the CD version of Gradius 2, and then you can also hold down select and do the arcade version. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that they let you do on here is they let you use the wrong system card. So when you used a lot of these CD games, you would put the CD in, and then in the cartridge slot you would put like a little system card that activated the CD-ROM. And there were different revisions of this card that worked for, as the games got more and more advanced, they came out with a 2.0 card and a 3.0 card. This particular game, Sapphire, used the 4.0 card. So if you hold down select and launch Sapphire, it'll load the wrong system card and let you see all of the menus that came up when you did that. So this is the 2.0 card. Obviously it's the wrong card. And I love that it makes that CD sound when it loads it up. It's so great. Girl in a bikini telling you that you put the wrong card in there. So that's just pretty neat. And then if you go back to the menu and load it up properly, you'll notice that it's the other card, the regular card. Then the game loads up properly. So it's just really neat that, because when we played TurboGrafx back in the day, we used to do stuff like that. We used to say, I wonder what would happen if you but what if you plug the wrong card in there? Or what if you, we would try weird stuff like that. And the fact that the developer said, yeah, we'll still let you do that, that's extraordinary to me that they let you do that. If we hold down select on Gradius 2, System 2 card, telling you it's the wrong game, or it's the wrong card for your game. You need to use the Super System card. It's wild, but by far my favorite one. I don't know if you guys have ever taken the time to try this or check this out, but you have to try Dracula X. Dracula X has by far the best one. So it's actually like kind of this dumb little playable dumb looking game. And then you finally get to the screen that tells you, hey, you're using the wrong card. And there's Richter and Maria, jumping for joy. And the fact that they took the time, who's going to see that? Nobody's. You have to specifically put in the wrong card to check that out. And who would think to try something like that on on a mini system of all things too? So if I go back to the menu and load it up again without hitting select, that's the 3.0 card, the proper card. Game loads up properly. So that's pretty dang amazing that you can do like just little quirks like that in the in the system. So if you go down here to TurboGrafx, switches you back, and I'm sorry, but you're going to have to indulge me for a second. I cannot. You just can't play with a TurboGrafx without hearing the opening music from Ys. It's just you're just not allowed to mess around with the TurboGrafx unless you put on the music from Ys. I want to say this is Yuzo Koshiro did this track, and it's one of like the best tracks I've ever heard in any video game ever. Like it's hard to top this music.
East, the ideal utopia.
I'll just never forget how blown away I was when I first saw this whole opening of this game. I just like, the perfectly clear voice and the that soundtrack, and just like, man, it was unbelievable. And a fun fact about this fella you're hearing doing this voiceover right now, that is Alan Oppenheimer, who his claim to fame is he is the voice of Skeletor from the 80s He-Man. And that's no joke.
East, the seemingly tranquil paradise, suddenly...
So it's just funny to me to think about Alan Oppenheimer sitting down and doing this voiceover for this game, and then probably like later that afternoon he drove over to the Filmation studio and, went, yeah, so He-Man, you boob, it's just, that kind of stuff's fantastic to me.
The legend has been silenced for over 700 years. And now, the mystery unfolds.
Great soundtrack. So let's get out of that. So TurboGrafx Mini. I'm still going to say that the Genesis Mini is my favorite. This one's a close second. I really dig the TurboGrafx Mini, and I think with the mod it's going to be just even that much better. So really looking forward to that. But heck, out of the box, I'm having a ton of fun with it. It's pretty cool. So that's how to survive a pandemic. Is you get all these mini systems together, and you've got endless hours and hours of, I'll call them memories, because that's really what it is, hours and hours of memories. Just all of the years of games that I've played over the years are all locked up inside of these minis, and it's just it's a lot of fun to play them and enjoy them. So the only one that I didn't really pick up, there's the little shutdown animation, that's kind of fun. The only one I didn't pick up is the Neo Geo CD. It's a tiny arcade machine that looks neither like an MVS Neo Geo or an AES Neo Geo. It's just a strange anomaly that I want a proper and I want to see an AES, proper miniature AES. I'm fine with Neo Geo CD controllers, but I want a proper looking AES system, and just that's what I want to play my Neo Geo games on. Don't get me wrong, I love Neo Geo, but I just don't want to, I have the little mini playing on that thing. I know you can plug the extra controllers into it and you can hook it up to your TV and all that stuff, but I don't know. I just, I never got it because, it's weird looking to me. If you can track these things down, by all means, grab it. The TurboGrafx right now at the time of this this presentation, it's only available on Amazon.jp, but the price is only $7 more than it would be to get it from the U.S. So I think, that's worth it if you really you're watching this and you're like, oh, it's pretty cool, I'm going to grab it. Grab it from Amazon.jp. It'll be out in the U.S. soon enough, but, whatever. I think, as far as I can tell, it's the same system and everything that's going to come out here. Genesis Mini is still pretty readily available. I think PlayStation Mini is too. It's the NES and SNES that are kind of a little bit more hard to come by these days. So that's it. That's part one of How to Survive a Pandemic. I'm calling it part one because the next episode I do, I'm going to show you some more stuff that I've been doing to kind of pass the time, during this this quarantine. So look forward to that, and that's it. Bye.